Now, this is an animated time capsule in the loud, brash, over-accessorized kingdom of 1990s television animation, a time when everything from cereal boxes to sneakers shouted Xtreme. Quackpack strutted onto screens like a swaggering denim-clad cousin who just learned how to ollie and wouldn't stop talking about it. It was a show built entirely out of the language of its era. Spiked hair, sarcastic quips, neon graphics, and the unshakable sense that skateboarding into frame made any character instantly cooler. Premiering on September 3rd, 1996, Quackpack represented Disney's bold attempt to rebrand its classic duck family for a new, sassier generation. This was no longer the quaint, globe-trotting, treasure-hunting world of DuckTales, where Huey, Dewey, and Louie were dressed identically and shared a single personality. This was the late 90s, baby, and Disney was serving up reinvention with a side of snark. The show was produced by Walt Disney Television Animation, the powerhouse behind the beloved Disney Afternoon Block, a weekday treasure trove of cartoons that played like a mixtape of Disney's loudest, brightest, and most eccentric ideas. For kids of the era, this block was an after-school ritual, a crash course in everything from heroism to slapstick, with Quackpack arriving as one of its final and arguably most polarizing entries. The series ran for only one season, a brief but bombastic collection of 39 episodes that embraced the absurd, the action-packed, and the weirdly topical with gleeful abandon. The premise took more than a few liberties with legacy. Donald Duck, once a hot-headed sailor or a globe-trotting caretaker, had been reimagined as a television cameraman working for a pompous, narcissistic news anchor named Kent Powers. His romantic partner, Daisy Duck, played a bigger role than ever before, now functioning as a globe-trotting field reporter with a flair for danger and drama. Together, Donald and Daisy traveled far and wide in search of scoop-worthy stories, often with disastrous slapstick results. Tagging along were Donald's nephews, Huey, Dewey, and Louie, who had undergone a serious transformation. They were no longer the color-coded clones of the past. Instead, they were full-fledged teenagers, each with his own wardrobe, personality, interests, and middle school angst. And make no mistake, these boys had been dipped in the essence of 1990s youth culture. Huey was the smooth-talking romantic with a pseudo-philosophical streak, the kind of kid who thought fate and destiny were probably the same thing. Dewey was the brains of the bunch, with a love for gadgets, pranks, and anything he could program, rewire, or rig with a fog machine. Louie was the youngest, a gentle soul with a deep love of animals, comic books, and nature documentaries. Basically, the chill little brother everyone wants until he eats the last slice of pizza. Together, this trio brought skateboards, slingshots, and teen rebellion into Donald's life, often causing chaos, but occasionally managing to save the day. Throughout the series, the plots played like a mashup of Saturday morning staples and wacky sitcom logic. The boys turned into superheroes, twice actually, foiled alien invasions, stumbled through haunted mansions, and at one point helped a lovesick alligator escape from captivity. There were episodes about mistaken identity, mad scientists, and a mind control device disguised as dental braces. One storyline had Louie arrested for trying to stop animal poachers. Another had Donald aging in reverse after a run-in with a shrinking formula. Daisy's pet iguana, Knuckles, even got his own Godzilla-style rampage episode. It was a kaleidoscope of mayhem, with each episode throwing a new gimmick into the mix and watching the ducks flail their way through it. But Quackpack wasn't just about the ducks anymore. It introduced human characters into the mix, which was a significant departure from the all-animal world of DuckTales. Co-producer Toby Shelton deliberately leaned into the old-school Donald Duck shorts from the 1940s and 50s, where Donald often interacted with humans rather than other anthropomorphic animals. That decision gave the show a different tone, a little edgier, a little more grounded in the absurdity of reality television and modern media. Kent Powers, the egomaniacal news anchor, was the poster child of 90s media satire. Gwumpke, the kindly Eastern European diner owner, served burgers with a side of grumbling about unpaid tabs. And then there was Knuckles, Daisy's blue iguana with a bottomless stomach and a growl that could clear a newsroom. Familiar faces from the wider Disney Duck universe were noticeably absent. There was no Scrooge McDuck doling out Scottish wisdom, no launchpad crashing aircraft into bogs, no Beagle Boys bumbling through heists. Quackpack stood alone, unconnected to the duck family tree that most fans had come to love. It was its own entity, louder, more colorful, and unapologetically plugged into the pop culture of the time. And while it only lasted one season, the show packed in enough outlandish scenarios, catchphrases, and moral of the story wrap-ups to make it feel much longer. Originally developed under the working title Duck Days, the series was eventually renamed Quack Pack, a decision that gave it a catchier, more marketable identity suited to the Saturday morning cartoon lineup of the time. The name change was clearly a branding move, aimed at standing out in a crowded field of animated shows, targeting kids, hyped on sugary cereal and commercial breaks. Even so, fans with sharp ears can still catch echoes of the original title embedded within the show's theme song, a loud, guitar-driven track that explodes with punk-inspired energy and cranks up the volume on the show's efforts to be hip, cool, and unmistakably 1990s. The music, with its high-octane riffs and rebellious tone, perfectly matched the show's visual style. The animation, particularly in episodes produced by Disney Australia, was vibrant and expressive. Characters moved with exaggerated physicality, and the framing often played with shadows and lighting in ways that made each scene feel more dynamic and adventurous. There was a kind of glossy, high-saturation finish to it all, an aesthetic that was unmistakably tuned to the neon sensibilities of the decade. Also, I feel like quacking, so I think I will. Whose bright idea was that? Yet for all its flash and flare, Quackpack didn't stick the landing. Almost as soon as it premiered, it began to fade. The show only ran for a single season, just 39 episodes, and quietly slipped out of the Disney afternoon lineup without much fanfare. It was a casualty of Disney's programming evolution, as the company restructured its animated offerings to fit the upcoming one Saturday morning block on ABC. The transition marked a shift in tone, focus, and strategy. And Quackpack, with its specific flavor of adolescent duck mischief, didn't quite fit the new mold. Reruns carried it forward for a little while on the Disney Channel and later on Toon Disney in the early 2000s. But unlike breakout hits like Darkwing Duck, DuckTales, or even Goof Troop, Quackpack never became a central pillar of Disney's syndicated cartoon empire. By 2004, it had vanished from regular TV circulation almost entirely. Even so, Quackpack hasn't been completely forgotten. Its entire run now lives on Disney+, readily available for rediscovery at the press of a button. Nostalgic fans, curious younger viewers, and retro cartoon enthusiasts can dive back into its oddball stories and unique tone. The debate continues among viewers. Some still appreciate its bold attempt to modernize classic characters, especially the decision to finally give Huey, Dewey, and Louie distinct voices and personalities. These updated versions of the triplets, sarcastic, restless, and media-savvy, resonated with kids who saw a bit of themselves in the brothers' antics. Others, however, view the show more critically, pointing out that, in trying so hard to be edgy and of the moment, it often lost sight of what made the Donald Duck universe so charming and timeless in the first place. Cultural critics and animation fans alike have described Quackpack as a perfect time capsule of mid-1990s television, encapsulating everything from the baggy fashion and skateboard stunts to the heavy use of attitude as a personality trait. Dated doesn't even begin to describe this show. In fact, it's so of its time that you can practically tell what the writers, producers, and corporate executives had for lunch that day. It's filled with snarky dialogue, visual gags aimed squarely at the MTV generation, and plots that bounce between zany and borderline surreal. In 2020, DuckTales paid tribute with an episode titled Quack Pack, in which the characters find themselves trapped inside a cheesy 90s sitcom world, complete with a live studio audience. The nod wasn't just an affectionate parody, it was a sly confirmation that this forgotten footnote in Disney animation history had, in its own way, carved out a permanent place in the cultural memory. Love it, hate it, or forget it entirely, Quackpack existed, and for a brief, loud, and weirdly wonderful time, it was very much part of the Disney Duck dynasty. The home media releases for Quackpack were, by all accounts, fairly modest and limited in scope, especially when compared to the extensive treatment given to Disney's more commercially successful animated shows. In 1997, 3 VHS tapes were released in the United States, each containing 2 episodes, adding up to a total of 6 selections from the full 39-episode run. Titles such as The Boy Who Cried Ghost and IOU-AUFO were among the chosen few, offering a small but flavorful taste of the series to fans who wanted something to rewatch beyond TV reruns. These tapes, like many other late 90s cartoon VHS releases, came in brightly colored plastic cases that screamed Saturday morning nostalgia. Nearly a decade later, in 2006, a DVD titled Quack Pack, Volume 1, quietly appeared in Region 1 format in the United States. It featured a handful of episodes, including Transmission Impossible, Heavy Dental, and Feats of Clay. This DVD release, however, was bare bones. No bonus features, no behind-the-scenes documentaries, no commentary tracks. Just a straightforward compilation, likely aimed at nostalgic adults and curious kids browsing the DVD section of a fading video store. Meanwhile, overseas fans were sometimes better off. Internationally, the show enjoyed a slightly broader distribution. In Europe and Japan, for instance, Disney released the series in scattered forms, ranging from one-off DVDs to seasonal programming blocks, while also airing reruns on various international Disney channels, such as Disney XD and Disney Junior. In countries like Turkey, India, and Germany, Quackpack lived on well into the 2000s through syndicated reruns. But even there, it remained something of a second-tier Disney offering. Unlike DuckTales, Darkwing Duck, or even Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers, Quackpack never enjoyed a full series DVD release or a remastered collection. There was no collector's edition, no elaborate anniversary packaging, and no fanfare surrounding its eventual availability on streaming services. It came and went with little fuss, which somehow feels fitting. Still, if you stop someone who grew up in the mid-1990s and mention Quackpack, there's a good chance you'll see a smile creep across their face, followed by a laugh or a half-remembered anecdote. Maybe they'll recall the episode where Donald Duck ends up becoming an accidental celebrity when his antics are shown on a parody of America's Funniest Home Videos. Or maybe they'll bring up the one where the boys convince Donald that an earthquake is about to happen and chaos ensues. You might even get a nod toward the superhero-themed episode where one of the nephews dons the unfortunate alias, the really incredibly fast guy. A name so on the nose, it loops back around to being iconic. For a generation of viewers, Quackpack was a brief but unforgettable part of their after-school routine. It didn't always make sense, and it certainly didn't stick to the rules of previous Donald Duck lore, but it was colorful, chaotic, and incredibly 90s. Ultimately, Quackpack was a glorious, if short-lived, burst of 1990s cartoon energy. It represented Disney's attempt to remix their classic legacy characters for a generation obsessed with skateboards, camcorders, virtual reality helmets, and overly complicated plot devices. It was a cartoon caught in the cultural riptide of its decade, trying to surf the wave of cool while still clinging to the values of traditional slapstick. Teen Ducks fought villains, outwitted bosses, battled monsters, and sometimes just tried to survive high school-level drama. And through it all, they wore a lot of flannel. DuckTales might have had the adventure, but Quackpack had the attitude. It was brash, fast-talking, and dripping with radical 90s flair. It only ran for one season, but in many ways, it didn't need more. It burned fast, left a mark, and quietly faded into the background, only to be rediscovered years later by nostalgic adults scrolling through Disney+. So while it might not have received the red carpet treatment of Disney's crown jewels, Quackpack has remained in the hearts of those who remember it. Not as a flawless masterpiece, but as that bizarre, lovable, neon-tinted show that bridged the gap between classic cartoons and the extreme energy of a very specific decade. It's still quacking, still packing, and still tucked away in the weirder, more wonderful corners of childhood memory.
Joy will bring. Tune into the beat, feel the magic, it's true. Channel 19 on X, we're here just for you, for you.